Hello everybody, I'm Bill Loxterman. I'm the co-chair of the City of Muskegon's Public Relations Committee. I'm here today on campus at Muskegon Community College, which, as many folks might not even know, is in the City of Muskegon. I'm here today with Tim Paul, who's the Director of Finance for the city. This show is part of an initiative of the Public Relations Committee to introduce folks to the different departments in the city and tell a little bit about what's going on. So today we focus on the finance department. So welcome, Tim. Welcome to campus. How long have you been with the city?
Just about 24 years now.
Wow, good long time.
Yeah.
So you're in the paper a lot.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of ups and downs over the years, economic cycles, and now we're into another one.
Well, speaking of that, we know tax revenues are down, unemployment's up, which means people aren't paying as much income tax. So virtually every form of government, whether it be city, state, national, in trouble revenue-wise. What's this mean? What kind of overview can you give us for the city of Muskegon?
Well, yeah, you're right. It's not just the city of Muskegon. It's the state, the federal government, schools, and especially the state and federal governments. They directly impact the city. So our problems are largely driven by the general economy, but also the statewide economy. The state of Michigan, the city's general fund, which is the fund that pays for police, fire, parks, and most public services, really has three main revenue sources, and those are the city income tax, property taxes, and state shared revenues. Until recently, we've had several years, since about 2001, the state shared revenues have been cut back year after year. And we've dealt with that. More recently, we've had a real jolt with our income tax, however. As the unemployment rate's gone up in Muskegon, our income taxes have fallen dramatically. For many years, they were pretty stable and even growing, but they've started going down pretty precipitously the last couple of years, so we need to deal with that. Our property tax revenues have held steady, but really our problems are state shared revenues and income taxes at this point. The income tax, you mentioned Muskegon Community College. The income tax is very important to us. For one thing, it brings in revenue to the city from institutions like Muskegon Community College, which doesn't pay property taxes. The hospitals, the correction facilities, schools, those facilities employ a lot of people, but they don't pay property taxes. They're either government or they're tax exempt. So the people that work in those facilities do pay income tax, so it's a major source of income for us. In addition to the revenue fall off, we also are experiencing, as are other organizations, rising costs, especially in the areas of pensions, employee pensions, and health care. Those costs are just going up very rapidly. At the same time, revenues go down. So we're really in a scenario, call it the perfect storm type thing.
Proverbial rock and a hard place,
right? So, but like I say, we're used to dealing with cutbacks. We're used to dealing with tight budgets, so we'll get through it, but it's going to be a challenge.
So revenues are down, costs continue to rise. Is there any good news on the horizon? Any bright spot that might give you a little bit of hope for the future?
Yeah, I think Muskegon is probably better off than a lot of communities in several regards. Number one, because we've had a long history of dealing with economic cycles, we were smart enough, I guess you might say, to put some money aside into a rainy day fund. So we do have some reserve funds. We actually have some millage capacity. We could raise property taxes to help ease the burden, but nobody wants to do that. The staff will not recommend a budget with that, and I don't think the city commission wants to do that. But unlike most communities, we actually have some room to maneuver there. So that's a positive thing. When bond rating agencies like Moody's or Standard & Poor's look at the city, that's one thing they say, hey, you do have some capacity there to deal with a crisis. Some of the long-term legacy costs like pensions and retiree health care, we've also done a pretty good job of setting aside money for those. So you hear about pensions and retiree health care with GM and Chrysler. Cities and states have the same issue. We've made promises over the years to pay people pensions for their whole life, to provide retiree health care, and most communities, frankly, have not put away money for those things. We have. Our pension funds are pretty well funded. We do have, we still have unfunded liabilities, but they're not nearly as severe as many communities. So those are some positive things. We also have some positive development. You know, downtown, anybody who's been downtown in the last year or two sees the Baker College Culinary Arts Institute going up, some of the new office buildings. We just had a nice summer of activity with summer celebration and bike time. So things are looking up downtown. We built a new fire station there. There's still a lot to be done down there, but things are looking up. If the economy turns around, we think those areas will take off.
Great. So Tim, you kind of hinted that there are several things that you do when you encounter an economic crisis. It seems like we've been in one in varying degrees for quite some time now, but what are some of those specific strategies, and how do you develop those strategies, and when do you decide to implement them?
Well, I guess I would break our strategy into long-term and short-term. On the short-term side, dealing with the budget today, we do have some tools at our disposal. Like I said, we have a rainy day fund, which we're drawing on in 2009. We'll draw more in 2010, but it buys us some time. Hopefully, during that time, the economy rebounds. There will be cutbacks. That's obviously the last resort strategy, but you know, we are a pretty lean organization, and we have been for a number of years, but there will likely be further cutbacks. In the paper recently, you might have heard, we just cut back the recycling program. It was one of those programs that was popular to many people, but when you looked at competing programs and how to use dollars, it just wasn't being utilized by enough people to continue justifying its existence. So we continue to look at programs like that. Our strategy in that regard would be to protect the services like police and fire and parks that people really want. You know, when you look at a government budget, you look at things like finance directors and personnel offices and things like that. The general person doesn't care about those. They want police, fire protection. They want good parks. And so as we allocate our resources, we try to allocate more towards those popular direct services that people really want, and try to really streamline the amount of back room or overhead that we have in the organization. And we've done a pretty good job of that, but we'll do more. Like I said, even though we do have some millage capacity, we could raise property taxes to help deal with this. I don't foresee that, at least from staff a staff recommendation.
People feel like they're paying plenty of taxes now.
Oh, yeah,
with the unemployment.
Yeah, people are unemployed,
not a good
and
situation.
laying an extra tax on them would just be very, very tough at this point. One tool we do have at our disposal, which I want to talk a little bit about, is a fiscal year change. We could change our fiscal year, and we are strongly considering that from the current calendar year to a different fiscal year, and that could actually generate some more money for us without any pain to the taxpayer. So that's one thing.
Is that a one-time?
It's a one-time, and
fix?
some people would call it a gimmick, and it is somewhat of a gimmick, but you know, extraordinary times require extraordinary measures, and that's one thing that could help our fund balance out and give us a fresh start